Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of famous American cartoonists who could pass for gay in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. The show is brought to you today by Audible. Audible is offering Mr. Media listeners a free audiobook download and a free 14-day trial to give you a chance to check out their amazing service. You can choose a free audiobook from Audible's library of tens of thousands of titles, including today's top business bestsellers, such as The Big Idea by Donny Deutsch, Jay Elliott's The Steve Jobs Way, or even Shark Tales, How I Turned $1,000 into a billion-dollar business. You can even download the biography of a comic book and graphic novel legend, Will Eisner, called A Spirited Life, which I wrote and read. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/radio. Again, that's audibletrial.com/radio for your free audiobook. When it came to Howard Cruse's comic strip character Wendell, the word gay really did mean happy. That's one of the first impressions you get from reading the newly collected strips in The Complete Wendell. It starts on the cover, Wendell beaming at his friends, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, bushy red hair drawing all attention to him. Wendell was a gay character in an era when gay Americans were increasingly stepping out of the shadows, making their voices in politics known, and demanding a share of the equality other minorities had sought before them. As time goes on, we see the almost Archie-like Wendell still have his goofy moments, but there is a genteel radicalization that gradually engulfs the strip, no doubt reflecting the times in which the strip was published. As for the artist, Howard Cruse, the founding editor of Gay Comics, he's an old friend, someone I met through Will Eisner about 8 years ago when the two of them were visiting artists at the Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. Howard, welcome back to Mr. Media.
Well, thank you for inviting me back.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Congratulations on the new Wendell collection.
Well, thank you very much.
I understand, though, this is not the first time that these strips have been gathered together. So what is new here, or what was the motivation here?
Well, there were three Wendell collections before this one. Two of them were partial collections while the strip was still running. Mm-hmm. The third came out about, I guess, 12 years ago or 11 years ago, which was a complete collection of the series, which ran from 1983 until 1989 with an interruption. It's explained in the book. But the problem is, for those in the comics industry, they may remember the sad story of LPC Group, which was a publisher that published that collection, which was called Wendell Altogether, but they went bankrupt shortly after my book was published. And in the confusion involving their stock being tied up in bankruptcy court, that edition barely had a chance to begin filtering out to bookstores when it became unavailable.
I see.
And although it was technically not out of print until about 3 years ago, because in the course of the bankruptcy, the imprint, the Olmsted Press imprint under which the Wendell Altogether was published, was sold to a Rhode Island publisher, small press publisher. That publisher kind of inherited a bunch of books and did not really know much about marketing, either to comics, the comics market, or the gay market. So essentially the book was off of everyone's radar, and to a frustrating degree, considering that it had begun getting good reviews when it first came out. Mm-hmm. So that edition will still float around the internet, some in the used book variety, but it's been out of print now for several years. And Dennis Kitchen helped represent it to Rizzoli International, the publisher of classy art books, who decided that they would give it a fresh start under a new title, The Complete Wendell, and hopefully it will, have a chance to attract audiences that missed that earlier attempt to get the series out. This one has a little new material. It has a new 2-pager that I drew for this book, and it has a very nice introduction by Alison Bechdel,
Hmm.
who, well known for Fun Home, the great graphic novel from I think 3 or 4 years ago. And so here it is again. This is the complete series, every episode for the entire run of the series, plus a bunch of what I call scrapbook items. They're peripheral um, strips and bits of artwork involving Wendell that sort of don't fit into the series as a whole, but are interesting to people that like looking at the Wendell characters.
Got it. All right, and I was going to ask you, for viewers who may not know Wendell at this point, obviously you want to introduce them, catch them up on a little bit on where he started, kind of his journey, and where he finished at the time.
Well, I created the series at the invitation of The Advocate, the gay news magazine, um, because they had become aware of me because of gay-related strips that had appeared in the Village Voice, and also the gay comic series, which started in 1980. So around, I had some of my voice work had been reprinted in The Advocate, and then The Advocate and I began talking about me doing a comic strip. Um, and so I created the Wendell character and his circle of gay friends. The cast grew and grew as the series went on. At first, we didn't know if it would just be an occasional strip, but it was popular enough with Advocate readers that they decided it should run in every issue. So it did for a number of years. It started off, oh, here's one of my show and tells. It started off in what was called the Advocate's Pink Pages because it was printed on pink
Ah,
paper. Um, this is a tabloid, a very large tabloid sized page. And through 1984, the strip appeared first in that tabloid, in the back pink pages, which were basically sex ad pages. But finally, they decided the strip was, when it began to run regularly, they put it in the respectable white
mm,
pages of the main magazine. Only subscribers got the pink pages. The people on the newsstands didn't get the sex ads. So Wendell sort of became available to a bigger audience. But then the Advocate changed its format to the regular size magazine, and I couldn't shrink the strip as a single pager and still maintain the sort of roomy quality that I had enjoyed on the big tabloid pages. So I ended the strip for a year and a half, but then the Advocate decided that they would like to have it back, and they gave it 2 pages in every issue.
mm,
So that's the story of why there was an interruption in the middle. And so in the book, there's a change as you go from the first section to the second section. But basically, because it was in the sex ad section, I started off thinking that the strip would just be kind of satirical of the gay singles sex scene of 1983 in New York, where although I placed the strip not in New York specifically because I didn't want it to be kind of in the gay ghetto. It's in an unnamed city that I sort of think of as somewhere in the middle of the country rather than on either coast. And however, I had barely started the strip and run several episodes when I began to feel uncomfortable with the sort of gay bar single scene being the central motif, given that it was, it become evident that because of the AIDS epidemic, that this was actually it was hard for people to feel lighthearted about that scene because it was actually had precipitated a lot of deaths. And so anyway, I switched the focus when Wendell meets Ollie Chalmers, who becomes his lover. They move in together. Ollie was previously married and has a son.
mhm.
And so that family constellation became the center of the strip. And then, I was trying to reflect the way gay life was lived by, the people I knew, friends of mine. And so you had various cast members added to reflect the different sort of types that were around. We had, added lesbian characters, and we added Some characters were more outrageous than others, and it was basically I wanted the advocate readers to recognize their world in the strip, and the strip reflected current events. The AIDS became part of the strip. The homophobia that was rife in the government and in religious organizations became part of the strip, and so news events that advocate readers were reading about or participating in, as in the case of the 1987 March on Washington, my characters would participate in them too. And as a matter of fact, Eddie, my lover then and now my husband here in Massachusetts, he was one of the people who participated in a demonstration, a civil, what do you call it, I've gone blank on the name for civil rights demonstrations where civil disobedience demonstration that resulted in arrests at the Supreme Court building protesting the 1986 Hardwick decision that the Supreme Court that basically said it was okay for states to outlaw gay sex. And this was outrageous, and it has 17 years later, it was overturned. For some reason, 17 years seems a magic number for homophobic laws to be overturned. This year, don't ask, don't tell had the same period before being reversed. But anyway, so Eddie and I both went to the March on Washington, but then the March on Washington so that it could be in the Advocate within a week of the March on Washington. So only Eddie got to stay in Washington and actually be arrested. But Wendell and Ollie were also arrested, but I just had to imagine what it would be like. We didn't know yet at the time that I drew that strip. As it turned out, nobody got put in a holding cell. They just got the little plastic handcuffs and got shuttled around in buses and got their names taken and whatever. That's the way it actually went down. But Wendell and Ollie actually got to sit in a cell with bars.
Well, look, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to have you show folks what's on your drawing board behind you. I know we're in your studio.
Very good.
But this is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching, because that's where all the good stuff is, the Mr. Media radio interview with cartoonist Howard Cruse, whose latest book of collected comic strips is The Complete Wendell. And we'll be right back.